It started with a bet, a cruel joke that was never meant to be taken seriously. A polished CEO, her manicured hands glinting with diamond rings, stood beside her brand-new luxury car stranded in the middle of nowhere. Her expression mixed frustration with arrogance as she stared down at the black mechanic who had come to help. "Fix this engine and I'll marry you," she said with a smirk. Her friends laughed behind her as though it were the funniest thing they'd ever heard. They took pictures. They filmed it. They thought it was harmless fun. But for the man kneeling in grease-stained overalls, the laughter echoed differently. He wasn't a punchline. He was a craftsman, and the broken engine before him was more than just metal. It was a test of dignity. He worked quietly, each turn of the wrench silencing the mockery bit by bit. The CEO's laughter grew uneasy. Her friends' giggles faded. In just a few short minutes, the impossible became possible. The luxury car roared back to life. The air shifted. The smirk on her face vanished. She looked at him, truly looked, for the first time, and realized that the man she had mocked had just accomplished what no one else could. What followed would ripple far beyond that parking lot, through boardrooms, newspapers, and hearts around the nation. Because what began as a racist taunt would turn into one of the most unexpected, humbling transformations the city had ever seen. And when people asked years later, how did a joke turn into a movement? She would always answer the same way. It started with an engine and a man who refused to be small. Before that day, Elena Bradford was known as one of the youngest female CEOs in the auto industry. She ran Bradford Motors, a billion-dollar empire inherited from her father, a man who believed the world was divided between winners and workers. Elena had been raised in wealth and expectation. Her education came from Ivy League classrooms, her manners from exclusive country clubs. Her circle was small and polished. People who looked like her, spoke like her, and believed success meant never getting your hands dirty. But Elena had one weakness: arrogance disguised as confidence. She wasn't cruel for the sake of it. She simply didn't see the people beneath her. To her, the mechanics, drivers, and janitors who worked for Bradford Motors were background characters in her success story. That was until her car broke down on a rainy Friday afternoon just outside Detroit. She had been on her way to a charity gala, ironically themed Bridging the Gap. When the car sputtered to a stop, she called the company's emergency line. They sent the nearest mobile technician, Marcus Reed. Marcus was a 34-year-old mechanic known in the local community for fixing what others couldn't. He had no formal degree, but his brilliance was legendary among his peers. Born and raised in the city's rougher neighborhoods, Marcus had built his own workshop from nothing. He believed in hard work, integrity, and second chances, not just for engines, but for people too. When he arrived, Elena barely looked at him. She stood under her umbrella, irritated by the rain in his grease-stained jumpsuit. Her friends, fellow executives, leaned against another car, whispering and laughing. Elena, in a moment of performative pride, joked, "If you fix this thing faster than my team can get here, I'll marry you." Laughter followed. The kind that bites. The kind that tells you exactly where you stand in the invisible hierarchy of the world. Marcus didn't flinch. He simply nodded, lifted the hood, and got to work. As he diagnosed the issue, Elena continued scrolling through her phone. To her, it was nothing, a moment forgotten as soon as the engine purred again. But to Marcus, it was something deeper. Not because of the insult, but because he saw her for what she was, a woman trapped in her own illusion of power. He didn't respond with anger. He responded with excellence. And in doing so, he set in motion a chain of events that neither of them could have predicted. Word of what happened spread faster than anyone expected. One of Elena's friends had recorded the whole thing, from her mocking bet to Marcus reviving the car. The clip went viral overnight, captioned, "CEO mocks black mechanic and instantly regrets it." The internet exploded. Millions watched, commented, debated. Some called for her resignation. Others defended her, claiming it was just a joke. But what truly shifted the tide wasn't the outrage. It was Marcus's response. When reporters asked him how he felt, he didn't lash out. He simply said, "She underestimated me. That's all right. I've been underestimated my whole life. What matters isn't what people say. It's what you do next. That humility turned him into an unexpected hero. Elena, however, was drowning in backlash. Sponsors pulled partnerships, board members questioned her leadership, and employees began whispering in hallways. For the first time in her career, she wasn't in control of the narrative. Haunted by guilt and pride, she reached out to Marcus privately, not for publicity, but out of something she hadn't felt before: shame. Marcus agreed to meet her. When they sat across from each other in his modest workshop, surrounded by the scent of oil and metal, she expected anger. Instead, she found grace. He told her about his journey. Growing up in a neighborhood where opportunities were rare, but determination was plenty. He spoke of his mother, who worked 2 jobs to pay for his first set of tools. He spoke of the nights he spent learning engines by flashlight when the power was cut off. And most of all, he spoke of dignity. The thing about engines, he said, is that every part matters. The smallest bolt can stop the whole system. People like that, too. For the first time, Elena listened, truly listened. She realized how deeply her world had been built on separation. Instead of defending herself, she asked a question that would change her life. What can I do to make it right? Marcus didn't ask for apologies. He asked for opportunity. He told her there were hundreds of skilled black mechanics who never got a chance to showcase their talent because big companies wouldn't hire them. If you want to make it right, he said, open the door. And that was the moment when redemption began. 3 months later, Elena launched a program under Bradford Motors called Project Revive, a national initiative to train, certify, and employ underrepresented mechanics from underserved communities. At first, it was viewed skeptically. Some believed it was a PR stunt. But Elena went all in. She partnered with Marcus's workshop, funded local training centers, and used her influence to spotlight talent across the country. What started as a gesture grew into a movement. Media outlets began covering stories of young black men and women finding their footing in the industry, repairing not just engines but entire perceptions. Elena transformed from a symbol of privilege to a student of humility. She spent weekends visiting workshops, shaking hands with people she'd never noticed before. And every time she saw Marcus, she felt something shift. Admiration born not of pity or guilt, but respect. Then one evening, during a national automotive summit, Elena took the stage to deliver a keynote. Cameras flashed. Executives filled the hall. She began with a confession. She told the story, unfiltered, of how she had mocked a man for his job, how the world saw her cruelty, and how that moment broke something inside her that needed breaking. She paused, then gestured to the audience. Marcus stood among the crowd, wearing his workshop jacket, humble as ever. This man, she said, voice trembling, taught me that greatness has nothing to do with titles. It's about how you treat the people who have none. The audience rose in applause. That night, as she stepped off the stage, Marcus approached her with a quiet smile. She laughed softly and said, "Guess you fixed more than just my engine." He smiled back. "Guess I did." Over the following years, Project Revive became a nationwide success. Thousands of mechanics were trained and employed, and several of them went on to start their own businesses, including Marcus, who expanded his workshop into a full-fledged academy. Elena's company transformed as well. Bradford Motors became known not just for luxury cars, but for its commitment to inclusivity and opportunity. It became the first major auto brand to sponsor community-based trade schools. As for Elena and Marcus, their relationship evolved beyond headlines. They became partners, not in marriage, as her cruel joke had suggested, but in purpose. She credited him for reshaping her vision of leadership. He credited her for using her power to change systems, not just situations. Years later, when the press asked Marcus what he thought of that infamous day, he said, "People remember how she mocked me, but I remember what she did after. And that's what makes all the difference." And for Elena, the lesson was lifelong. She learned that redemption doesn't erase the past. It redefines it, because sometimes the people we look down on are the very ones who lift us up. And sometimes a broken engine is just the universe's way of fixing something deeper inside us.